And I think we as a business need to do more around diversity and inclusion overall, and not just about women.
We can all try and do things further down the tree, and I'm sure we all have over time. Fundamentally, the culture is led from the top.
Hello and welcome to Women in the Driving Seat, where we take the time to shine a spotlight on the wonderful women in automotive. This week we're going to be talking to two women with experience of being an actual MD of a car brand. But first we have our guest bios. Julie David is an executive coach and board advisor and the founder of High Winds Coaching. Her career spans more than 40 years in corporate life and consulting, with the majority spent in the automotive industry. During that time, she has worked with teams and investors across the globe, taking on a variety of senior leadership roles, and most recently serving as Managing Director of Peugeot, DS Automobiles and Alfa Romeo. She is married and has a blended family of 5 sons, all now young adults. She is deeply passionate about helping individuals and teams become the best version of themselves. She thrives on tackling new, exciting, complex challenges. But as her work-life balance has started to shift in the right direction, she is happiest when she's by the coast, or better still, out on the water, in the sunshine, with a gin and tonic close to hand. Oh, count me in. Lisa is Chair and Managing Director of Ford of Britain and Ireland. Prior to that, she was Sales Director for Ford of Britain, and before that, she's had various roles within Ford. She's 57, lives in rural North Essex, but unfortunately doesn't spend as much time there as she'd like. Maybe we'll come back to that. Welcome to you both. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Okay, Lisa, you're up first. What plates have you been spinning? What balls have you been dropping this week?
Okay, so this week we fortunately have just been awarded the highest EV grant on Puma Jenny.
I saw that.
So we've been working really hard on how we get that rolled out through the network and make most advantage of that as possible. We are celebrating Transit's 60th birthday this year. So next weekend we're planning a really big party. So we're going to do a world record attempt at the longest transit convoy. And we have a big party celebration and festival in Chelmsford. So a bit of time on that this week. Mm-hmm. And then all the normal we're working through budgets for next year and plans for Q4. So that's kind of the plates that I've been spinning. And my kind of big thing that's dropped is I've kind of failed to do any of my domestic chores, and I've not managed to do any food shopping. So I've been eating random things from my fridge all this week, which hasn't been terribly pleasant, Erin, to be honest.
But kind of exciting, a little thrill for what's in the fridge.
Yeah, maybe. And
I've got to ask about the transit convoy. So where's that going?
So we're not allowed to do it on public roads, but what we're doing
I had this vision.
I know, across the Dartford crossing or something.
Yeah.
No, so we're doing attempting our record-breaking attempt around Dunton. So we've got in our research and engineering site, where actually is the home of transit in the UK, is in Essex. And we've got a series of roads, and we'll be running the longest convoy of transits, or hopefully, successfully, next Saturday on the site. And then afterwards, we're all toddling off to Chelmsford Race Course for a festival, where for those of you who didn't get tickets to Oasis, we've got an Oasis tribute band to come and play. So if anyone's got spare time, come along and join us.
Oh, hello. Count us in. This will probably be out after, so just count me in. Thanks very much. Julie, what about you? What's been going on in your week?
Lots of coaching clients, actually. And
good.
Yeah, quite a few from around the world as well. So I've had some American clients this week and Europeans. So that's
in
always
person or like
fascinating. No. A lot of the work I do now is actually virtual, but it actually works really well on one-to-one coaching. So as much as I much prefer in-person meetings, really, actually for that it works really well. So I've been doing that. One of my sons is about to go back to university for his final year, so the chaos of having a student at home over summer will be gone, although I'll miss him hugely.
Is he your last one to flee?
He is the last one to flee, yes. He's sort of flown anyway, really, once they go to uni. Although they do still keep coming back. It's interesting how you think they've gone and then they come back again. And then also we're in the middle of a move, so quite busy, finally making a big move, yeah. So
are you going down to the sea?
We are.
On a permanent
indeed.
basis?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Not at all jealous. Now, Julie, you've had a very distinguished
Well, that's one way of putting it.
distinguished career in automotive to date. We met, I don't know how many years ago, 5 years or something, at a woman in Stellantis, I think it is, talk.
Yeah.
But you've been everywhere, JLR, Volkswagen Group. Give us a potted history of you and OEMs.
Yeah, interesting, really, because when I think about the multiple roles I've had, because I'm very old, over all of that time, actually, I probably could have done that in one manufacturer, but it just happens to be that I've not necessarily gone out to look for other roles, but I've been asked to join other businesses. So I started at Ford Motor Company, and I actually started as on one of the schemes that they did, which was taking graduates in, but after they'd had 2 to 4 years commercial experience. So I'd already had a couple of other jobs before. And therein is where my automotive career started. So
were you at Ford at the same time?
We were in the Midlands district office together. Yeah.
Yes.
How long ago?
Oh, it's like prehistory, Aaron.
Is it?
Yeah, I don't think history books go back that
90s,
far.
early 90s.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, there we go. But actually, interestingly, and all of my ex-colleagues from Ford, we've always said what an amazing start it was in our careers, actually, Ford Motor Company. The huge amount of training and everything, which particularly set us up for working with retailers as well. I think that was the big thing. So that's amazing compared to, I think, what is on offer today by a lot of manufacturers. But anyway, I had about 5 years there. Then I, along with many other people, went off to Volkswagen Group. I did 13 years there. And
within the different brands?
Within the different brands and within a group function, which was also hugely informative and came to be very useful later on in my career as well, in group roles, as well as brand roles. Then I had a period where I was a consultant, and that's actually where I then also started some of my coaching. So I did a period of time working with public sector, private sector. Loved that. It was actually one of the most important steps I made in my career, actually doing that, going out, doing something different. And then when I was doing a piece of work with Jaguar Land Rover, they tempted me back in into a global role. And actually, I then did 2 really lovely global roles, quite extensive. They were really interesting. Again,
product
big
side,
step,
sales side, retail side?
franchising, retail, and then experiential marketing and PR. So really, again, really took a very different look at kind of, I guess, the whole world as well. So that was great. And then from there, I was asked to join Stellantis. It wasn't actually Stellantis at the time; it was PSA Group, to go and be MD of Peugeot. And then very soon after I joined, obviously the merger happened with FCA and became Stellantis. So within that, there's obviously a lot of brands and brands that were at very different points as well in their history. So yeah, very, very. Interesting, having done all of that, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Lisa, circling back to Ford, how is Ford doing these days?
Good. So obviously really challenging market for everybody. It's changing in terms of the transition to electrification, changing, I think, probably a little bit in terms of customer expectations, the volume of competitors got in the market, but our business is kind of very much split between commercial vehicles and cars. We're not just a car business. So we have probably the freshest range of commercial vehicles that we've ever had. We've just kind of launched both traditional diesel, plug-in hybrid, electric. So we're kind of managing that transition. That's, to be honest, is forced by government legislation, but nevertheless, we've got product and we bring it into the market. And then this year, we've just completed our full passenger vehicle lineup. So we've got traditional petrol cars, and we've got our newest battery electric vehicles. So we've got Puma, Explorer, Capri, and Mach-E. So we've now got our complete lineup. So and really pleased that for us, commercial vehicles are a really important part of our business, and we're market leader in that sector by a long shot in the UK, and we've got best-selling vehicle and car in the UK as well with Puma. So it's a tough market, Erin, but it's good.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there was a sense around Ford a couple of years ago of, Ford's really starting to retrench back towards America, and it's kind of, spiritual home, it's its original market, and it's kind of done in Europe. And everyone kind of cited, Mondeo is when the demise started and it's going one way. But then actually you look at the league tables for top sellers, best-selling cars, Puma is right up there. What is the sense?
So we're an American company. You look at Ford was a person, Henry Ford, and his family are still involved in running the company.
Yeah.
and it's been in existence over 100 years, but it's been in Europe for over 100 years as well. And actually, some of our dealers in the UK can trace their history back to Henry Ford arriving on a ship and then shaking hands with them and signing their franchise agreements. So we've been in Europe for over 100 years as well, and been in the UK for over 100 years. And our intention is to be here for another 100. So, and as I said to you, we've had tremendous investment in our commercial vehicle range and also our passenger vehicle range. We've just built a new manufacturing facility to build electric vehicles in Cologne. That's over $2 billion.
Well, that's a statement about your intention.
Exactly, and I'm really delighted that we've invested in Halewood as well. We have we manufacture the power packs that actually power our Puma are built in Halewood, and we've invested over £400 million up there to build for the future. So I think I don't recognise the sense of what you've described in the sense that we're here and we're here to stay, Erin.
And what do you think about the Chinese new entrants? How do you view Chinese car brands? Fearsome competitors, or kind of great, it's competition strengthens the market for all of us and they're a welcome addition?
So I think competition is important. I mean, if you go outside business and look at people like the recent stuff around Serena Williams and Marina Sharapova, they talked about how they were fierce rivals, and each time they played each other, they practiced really hard and they were desperate to win. So I think that's in sport, but the same in business. Competition pushes you to do better and go further. Now, sometimes it'd be really nice not to have the competition, but I think it's good. I think it's really good. And as I said to you, I think we've got a lot of strengths that puts us in a good stead in terms of we've been in Europe for a long time. We have a European manufacturing footprint. All of our commercial vehicles are designed in the UK, so I'm really confident that we have a really good handle on the UK customer, and we've invested heavily in building investment in the UK and in Europe to protect ourselves for the future. And actually, part of that investment is one of the reasons why we were able to get the higher level of EV grant, because we've invested in clean energy to help us build and produce our vehicles. So I think competition is always tough. It's not easy. I think it's a good thing in the market, and we just need to make sure we stay ahead.
Quite right. And I suppose finally, while we're just catching up on Ford in the UK and the past year and everything that's been going on, electric car grants has pushed everyone away from talking about the zero emissions vehicle mandate, but obviously it's still very live, still with us in the build up to 2030. I've heard you a number of times on the radio when it has been top of everyone's thoughts. Remind us, what are your views, what your position, what Ford's position is around what you think around the ZEV mandate, private sales of EVs. Is it realistic? Is the mandate realistic? Are we going to get there? Are OEMs still having to take the brunt? Do we need more help from the government? Or has the electric car grant stepped in at the right moment, and do we feel they've done their bit?
Okay, so that's a big question, isn't it, Erin?
In literally 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
So I think that we've always said that we understand why the Z mandate's there. It's about meeting emissions targets, and the UK has probably got the most ambitious targets in the whole world. And the challenge we've got is that customer demand isn't really keeping pace with that ambition. So we asked the government for two things. We asked them for flexibilities, which they gave us, and we asked them for incentives, particularly for retail customers, and they have put incentives in place. I think it's really too early to say whether that's enough and whether it's going to get us there, because we're looking at where we stand this year, at the targets we've got to meet this year, which is a mix that year over year steps up really aggressively. I think the challenge a little bit is, can we get enough retail customers to get behind it? And the answer is, I think the jury's still out, Erin. I think we just have to see what we can do with the grant that we've got. The challenge, I think, is there for cars. The really big challenge is commercial vehicles, because it's a very difficult transition for businesses to make, particularly small businesses and particularly individual traders. And we are seeing there are some big corporate fleets who have embraced a strong environmental message as a company, and they're very keen to make the switch into electrification, or they've got the infrastructure that makes it really cost effective to run electric vehicles. But that's not every business, it's not every sector, and it is an uphill battle. And I think actually the challenge, we haven't really talked about it very much, but the challenge on commercial vehicles is actually stronger. So I think to sort of sit on the fence a little bit, I'm afraid the jury is still out. I think we need to keep a close eye on it.
Yeah, I know. I was saying the other day, never have I haven't been in the automotive industry quite as long as you two ladies, but over 25 years, and I've never come across panels or conferences where you've got OEM bosses sitting on them, unable really to forecast with any degree of confidence or certainty various targets for the next 5 years around various things, because who the hell knows what tariffs are going to do, what consumer sentiment is going to do. Anyway, there we go. Julie, listen to all this. Are you thinking, thank God I'm doing executive coaching? Or are you kind of thinking, I miss it all and it's
I
exciting?
do miss an element of it. I do. I'm not sure I miss the chaos. It's very chaotic. And there's just endless challenges being brought into, I guess, any car company, regardless of where you're sitting. But yeah, I do. I miss the everyday hubbub sometimes.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, it's quite nice to be perhaps one step removed, particularly when I do advisory work. It's actually really nice to not necessarily have that where you're kind of always forced back into the daily operational piece. And
You mean just wash your hands and walk away?
Well, not quite that, but I think you were able to be more reflective, think more strategically. I think when you're a leader, as much as everybody, I believe there needs to be more strategic thinking and more pause and reflection, actually, in all these busy, full-on, 24/7, always-on kind of days. That ability to go between operational strategic is really important. So, yeah.
What are your thoughts on... we mentioned Chinese new entrants. What are your thoughts on the other aspect of Chinese companies is the Chinese parent companies, for a lot of European OEMs now, which consumers aren't necessarily aware of, but this is kind of primarily an industry podcast.
Yeah.
What do you think it can ever be a happy marriage? What does it take to have a successful European-Chinese relationship from your experience of being in OEMs, maybe stepping outside and doing consultancy work, because it's becoming increasingly an apposite thing to discuss?
I think it absolutely can be a happy marriage. I wouldn't say that they all are currently. I think there's a lot of challenges, but anything's possible. And I think in the end, it comes down to people and mutual respect. So if you think about the benefits of having a Chinese parent company, in terms of maybe funding, speed to market, there's lots of things that can be brought, but equally there's a lot that can be brought from a European perspective. So I think there can be a happy marriage. I mean, we can all go back to the 80s and 90s with all the JVs that happened in China, which is kind of the other way around. And that was always really challenging. And I've worked with China and with brands that are owned by the Chinese for some time. And I do think there's an element of people needing to understand the two cultures. So we know that China's able to go at speed. I mean, they build whole cities, kind of almost in the space of a few weeks, huge infrastructures. There is, a relentless push on pace. But if you come to Europe and you set up and you go and maybe poach a whole load of people because they've got the experience and pay them lots of money, then at least listen to them. Because I think what's happening is then I would almost liken it to a football manager kind of scenario where it's like, well, if you haven't delivered in 3 months, that's it, pay you a big salary and bang. But the reality is Europe doesn't move quite as fast. There is more time to take to set up big infrastructures and franchise investor relationships, etc. So I do believe it can work, and I've worked with some amazing Chinese leaders who do listen to the advice of the European colleagues who they brought in to give them that. I think it's quite hard when it goes back to HQ sometimes. So I think sometimes when it becomes a very head office related decision making situation, that's where it's difficult. There isn't necessarily always the understanding.
Yeah.
Whereas if the decision making is given to the region, then I think it can be often a lot easier.
Yeah.
And actually in many ways a lot faster. So as much as they go fast, sometimes the decision making is the bit that then can be painfully slow if it goes all the way back into a HQ. So anything's possible.
Yeah.
It's all about people in the end.
Anything is possible. It's already time for podcast pit stop, which is a quick fire round. Lisa, I'm going to put you in the firing seat first. Are you ready?
Oh.
Quick fire round. Lunch or dinner?
Dinner.
Dagenham or Brentwood?
Dagenham.
Engine or battery?
Engine.
Brexiteer or Remainer?
Oh, Brexiteer.
Ford Transit or Ford Puma?
Transit.
Oh, I love it. I thought you were absolutely
me.
going to refuse to answer that. That's brilliant. That's like favourite child. I mean, I can answer quite easily, but you know.
So you
Great.
have a favourite child then, Erin?
Huh?
So you have a favourite
Oh,
child?
of course I do. I'm just not going to name them, but
Okay.
I'm sure they know as well. Right. Julie. Alfa Romeo or Jeep?
Alfa Romeo.
BYD or a Moda JQ?
JQ.
Leadership or teamwork?
Teamwork.
Croissant or granola?
Granola.
Salcombe or Padstow?
Salcombe.
Fly away or stay put?
Stay put.
Okay, there you go. Wasn't too bad. Julie, seeing as we've got you, we'll stick with you. You're a rare beast, not in this company, but you know, a female former MD of a UK car brand. What was your experience in terms of company culture, gender split, things like parental pressures, the human side of it all as a woman?
I think my experience has changed over the years. I think certainly if I think about, well, even starting out Ford, extraordinarily different culture to I think what is, you know, what we're experiencing today. That said, as a female, I'm not sure as much has changed as absolutely could have done and should have done. And I think the more senior I've become, and I'm sure Lisa will have also found this, the more likely you are the only woman in the room, and certainly the only woman in the room maybe from a more commercial, broader perspective, maybe not from a, you know, if you're looking at specialist areas. That has never actually bothered me. I think what was interesting was earlier on in my career, I would say cultures were much more hierarchical, much more aggressive. You know, the thought of perhaps a more female voice, of a different way of thinking was perhaps not as accepted as much as maybe hopefully it is a little bit more now. And certainly if I think about things that encourage females into automotive now, there's a lot more there. I mean, my maternity leaves were, you know, super quick. There weren't the things in place that there are today. There certainly wasn't flexible working. You were required to be in the office, presenteeism, etc. And whilst I'm not an advocate of full-time working from home, because I think there's a lot of issues that come with that, I think the flexibility of when you start, all the sorts of things, you know, job shares, all those type of things are wonderful now for the, you know, actually helping with cultures, helping with gender split. But the gender split, the more senior you go, is still extraordinarily skewed towards male.
Yeah.
In terms of culture, I guess the cultures are so, in the end, honestly, and I see this across all businesses really, it's down to the leadership. It's about who's leading the business. And whilst we can all try and do things further down the tree, and I'm sure we all have over time, fundamentally the culture is led from the top. And whether that's at a global level or regional level, I really truly believe that that's, you know, a massive part of how the rest of the business then operates.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of the shadow of a leader piece is really true.
Yeah.
In terms of how people
listen up, leaders.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Lisa, what's your sense of it all? And I suppose at Ford, as you say, you know, vans is such an integral part as well of Ford, and we have more female van drivers and van buyers than we used to, don't we? But it doesn't feel like it's shifted that much.
So I will probably echo your perceptions, is that I think things have changed over time, and I'm not sure. I think it's just business culture has changed. So I think in the early days of my career, it is very aggressive. It was very male dominated. And I think that I joined at a time when women were just beginning to get recruited and come into the business. And I think sometimes some of the more senior people didn't know quite what to do with us, you know, and you were sort of, you know, you might be good at your job, but you might not have got promoted because they just couldn't understand that conceivably you could possibly do that job. I think culture has changed. So as some of those more traditional people have left and we've got newer leaders in who, in a very practical way, are more likely to have, you know, partners who work or are balancing life themselves, are more open to being more flexible with other people, which in turn engenders a different working environment. So I think things are changing, but they're changing slowly. I don't kind of see it quite as in a negative sense that you've portrayed, Erin, because if I think about the two boards that I sit on, just under half and just over half are female. My management team is half female. So the person that runs my commercial vehicle business in the UK is a woman. The person who runs my car business in the UK is a woman.
Right.
Now, Mandy's about to move jobs, but so the lead, our MD of the bank for credit in the UK is a woman. You know, I don't kind of see it as a negative way. If I think about our global board, about just over a third and 40% are female, and certainly across the US, we've seen more women come into the automotive business. I think the automotive business has more of an issue around diversity as a whole and attracting, great talent, because we're not really seen as a great aspirational place to work. And I think we as a business need to do more around diversity and inclusion overall, and not just about women. And I think the thing that strikes that I dread to hear is someone asking me a question about what's it like to be a female managing director. I think, well, actually, the last time I thought I was just a managing director. And I think those are the kind of questions and perceptions I don't actually think help. I think they stand in the way.
It's interesting. It's difficult though, isn't it? Because Ford, your numbers are bucking the trend, because we're still at kind of 20% employment levels for women in automotive overall, and it's still hovering around 10% at executive level. So I still think there's a sense of the women in those executive positions need to step forward and talk about being a woman in those executive positions in order to encourage women at all levels to come in, to stay in, and to rise up within the industry on the grounds of, if you can't see it, you can't be it, sort of thing.
But I think the reason, so you talked about the benefit of flexibility. So as you have children, as you're managing your work-life balance, the feedback that I've heard from my team members is that they don't necessarily want to work 2 days a week or 3 days a week, but they do want flexibility to help them manage their life. But if you listen to anybody under 30, male and female, they tell you that's what they want as well. So as an industry, if we want to grow and develop and keep people and attract good talent, we're going to have to focus more on the kinds of things that previously we would have perceived as being female-friendly policies. So I just think workplace is changing, Erin, and I think the problem is that I'm old, and my, I often think about this when some of the younger team members challenge me on things. Well, I think, well, I went through it, I did it. And then they keep saying, yeah, but why should we have to do it? You didn't enjoy it, so why should we have to do it? And that's a really fair question. Yeah. So I think that we all have to change. We all have to be open to change and think differently. And in some of the environments, it's not possible to do that. If you're running a manufacturing plant and it runs 24/7, you have shift work and you have people that need to be on site. And you can't work from home and you don't really have flexibility, and we need to think creatively about how we make that work. Whereas if you're office-based or you're travelling, then maybe you have more flexibility. But as an industry overall, I think we have a big task to make it more attractive for everybody. And then we need to change so that we are more attractive, particularly to younger people coming in and the best talent.
And also, we seem to have this bizarre shortage of CEOs at the other end of the scale as well at the moment. More and more in automotive, everyone is starting either to want to or have to look outside the automotive industry to attract CEO talent in. This was a question for you, Lisa, but equally valid for you, Julie, because you're doing a lot of executive coaching at the moment. I sometimes wonder, do we need CEOs? I don't quite understand what they do, but assuming we do, how are we going to attract CEO talent into the industry?
So I think we're in an industry that's changing really rapidly. If you kind of think back, for many, many, many years, we just kind of we had petrol or diesel engines, and we invented new body shapes and new transmissions. And I really apologise to any engineers listening to how dismissive that is. But essentially, we kind of iterated on what we've got. We've now got new technology. We've got connectivity. We need to embrace digital technologies to move us forward, and we're moving into electrification. So if you think about an industry on the cusp of change, that's kind of pretty exciting, pretty challenging. So I sort of understand why boards might want to look for somebody outside of an automotive environment, somebody maybe who's led that kind of change or been familiar with that kind of technology. So I sort of understand why that might be the case. And ultimately, I guess you want the best person for the job, don't you? Because we want a thriving automotive industry, particularly in the UK. Be interested to...
Yeah, what do you think, Julie? What are the skills? Where are we going to find the skills? Should we be looking to nurture the talent in the automotive industry, or is it good to have that breath of fresh air? How do you deal with your executive coaching and the kind of skills that are needed nowadays to rise to the top?
So I actually see that leadership skills are very similar across industries, and it's been fascinating both this time and previously when I worked in consultancy and coaching, that it doesn't matter what business you're running, the leadership skills needed have shifted across all industries. Definitely there needs to be much more around being a people leader, not just leading functions, and being in touch with the human side of the business is really, really important. But equally being able to make decisions really quickly or with clarity anyway, and leading with clarity and confidence. But I do see the skills being very, very similar. I think it's a level of complexity. Now, I think the level of complexity in the automotive industry is exciting, and I think that's the bit that could appeal to people. So when I look at complexity of other organisations, the leadership skills are the same, but the complexity might be of a different level, or it might just be that you've got to dial certain things up more than others. So if you look at the shape of the business, I think in automotive we've got a very complex commercial model globally, just in terms of go-to-market, huge number of stakeholders are involved in that commercial model, but also a huge amount of legislation as well. So it is a highly regulated industry, right through from manufacturing through to, if you think about even the FCA side of things, right? So there's a huge amount of regulation that the business has to work within. I think that's really exciting, and I wonder that that's a way to appeal to people as well, come into something that is actually quite challenging, but in a really good way. But I really truly believe that people can come in. I think it's about the mix of the leadership team, which is also your point around diversity, right? It's diversity of thinking. So if you've got a leadership team that is lots of different types of people who've come from different backgrounds, then in the end, the CEO could be maybe from outside of the industry, as long as other people on the board have got that experience. I think it would be quite difficult, given the complexity, to just bring in all non-industry. But I think you can bring in non-industry into that team, because again, it's not down to one individual, is it, right? So I agree with Lisa, and I think, as we go more towards digitalisation and, the more the mobility theme, then actually, of course, bringing other people in would be great. But the leadership piece, honestly, it's so... The challenges I have with the leaders that come to me, so I work in a lot of transition kind of situations. So people who've maybe just gone into a board role, maybe they've got challenges about, how they show up on that board, or they want to get a board role, or maybe even, some middle management. But it's generally more that kind of exec level. And it's so similar across so many different industries and across the world. Because again, I have got an international client base, and it's fascinating just how similar it is actually, and across men and women. So when people are in a one-to-one situation and they're able to share with you, it's quite extraordinary actually once they show their vulnerability. And obviously I work hugely confidentially with everybody, but actually it's quite similar.
Interesting. We are almost out of time. Lisa, have you got a life lesson for us?
Oh, so I was thinking about this, Erin, and one of the things I have learned very recently is the importance of friendship. So I think that it's important that you foster good friendships, because they're there for good times, but they're really importantly there for bad times. And it's really important that you are a good friend as well. So that's my life lesson.
I love that. Do you know what? I've been thinking about that recently. I wonder if you just get to a certain age and you kind of stick your head above the parapet, don't you? You've been so busy, head down, career, family, whatever, other pressures. And you lift it up and you think, yeah, you're right. Friendship.
I think you realise that when things aren't so good, and you realise there's people there carrying you along, and you think, actually, do you know what? I couldn't have done this without them. So that's my life lesson.
I like that. We haven't had that so far. I like that. Julie?
I guess I'd thought about it more from a career perspective, but I mean, our lives are completely blended, aren't they, anyway? I think if when I look back and I look at me at sort of 16, 17, and then I think of where I got to, I would have never, ever imagined that. So when I think about how I got there, I think, anything is possible, but when somebody asks you to do a difficult job that's not so glamorous, but maybe is a bit broken and, you know, could give you some really, and you look at it and think, oh my gosh, how am I going to do that? I don't know that I've got the skills for it. Go for it. So say yes to the difficult things, because maybe some of the more glamorous roles will come later if you do that at an early stage. Say no to poor behaviours, because that's my big mantra about it. You do not need people shouting and screaming and banging the table. Be true to yourself. And I definitely think that's something that females bring is behaving in a very different way, being very calm, being very elegant in delivering very tough messages, but definitely saying no to poor behaviour. Yes to the difficult things and no to poor behaviours.
Got it. Thank you so much. Thanks both of you for joining me today. It's been brilliant.
Thanks for having us.
Please do like, listen, subscribe, which I keep forgetting to say at the end of this podcast. You'll find us on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts.